Evenings are life's way of saying that you are closer to your dreams. Good evening, everyone. With great joy and immense exultation, I extend my warm welcome to all dignitaries, guests, and delegates present here for the webinar series organized by Diksha e-Learning in association with Ayurveda College Coimbatore. In today's session, we will be discussing about management of rheumatological diseases in Ayurveda with special reference to Amavada. Before starting the session, I would like to go through few of the basic instructions to be followed throughout the session. For uninterrupted class session, use laptop with high-speed internet connection. Please make sure your microphone is on mute to have a disturbance-free session. In case of any disruption, please check your internet connection firstly, and if the problem is within our network connection, kindly raise the issue in the chat box. Filling your full name to be displayed is appreciated. Any question can be posted in the chat box. Questions raised will be cleared at the end of the session. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Anaga VN, Assistant Professor, Department of Agadha Ayurveda College, Coimbatore, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, one and all. I heartily welcome you all for today's webinar. As you all know, today's session is on the topic Management of Rheumatological Diseases in Ayurveda with specific reference to Amavada by Dr. Praveen Madikonda, Associate Professor, Department of Panchakarma, Dr. BRKR Government Ayurveda College, Hyderabad. I extend a warm word of welcome to you, sir, for accepting our invitation and for being with us here today. Hope your valuable experience and views on vast clinical area will be enlightening to all of us. We are all delighted to listen to your words, sir. On the behalf of Ayurveda College, Coimbatore, I welcome you all delegates to today's session. Welcome, sir, and thank you.
It's, thank you, one and all. And first, I would like to thank the organizers, Diksha e-Learning, and also the Coimbatore Ayurveda College, the principal of Ayurveda College Coimbatore, and also the organizers, Dr. Ankush, and all others for really inviting me to present this lecture on this particular day. Without wasting much time, I would like to go to this particular topic. In fact, Ayurveda is known to treat rheumatological disorders in a much better way, and people believe that Ayurveda has got a good answer for joint disorders. But whether how far it is true, that has to be really seen. And during our course of the discussion, we will just go through these topics. And myself working as the associate professor at PG Department of Panchakarma, Dr. B.R. Kair Government Ayurvedic College. Well, why rheumatological diseases? Because the fact that the incidence of arthritis is on rise in India, and for the next few decades, arthritis, especially the knee joint arthritis, is expected to emerge as the fourth most common cause of the physical disability in India. And our country is seeing an epidemic of arthritis, and its incidence in the Indian population is believed to be much higher than what it is found in Western countries. A significant number of rapid rise in the arthritis is because of the life expectancy, increased life expectancy in India, which has doubled since the independence, and this is leading to a massive pool of aging population. So that is also one of the reason that is attributed. This is particularly in relation to the knee joint osteoarthritis. And apart from that, India, uh, the degenerative disorders are also happening because of the water contamination, vitamin like fluoride water content, and also the low vitamin D levels. So many other factors also have been attributed. And the average age of the female with the knee joint arthritis is 50 years, and for males it is said to be 60 years of age. So considering all these factors, we know that the osteoarthritis is on rise, and knee joint replacement is the only option that is left with many patients. But can Ayurveda really tackle these things? Yes, to a great extent. Uh, what are the areas where Ayurveda can really contribute, and what are the rheumatological disorders that Ayurveda doctors have to encounter. And in the present scenario, we need to have a very good clinical modern knowledge also to be able to understand the joint diseases in a better way. As even Acharya Sushita said that one has to read the contemporary sciences also to understand and this our science in a better way. So coming to the point that what we are going to discuss in this present lecture is the brief understanding of rheumatological ailments, the common rheumatological ailments in modern science and Ayurveda, and approach of management in both Ayurveda and modern science. Well, what about the prognosis? Ayurveda, what it said about the prognosis of joint diseases? It is interesting to see, like whether Ayurveda said that it can completely cure the diseases, because patients come to Ayurveda with the same kind of opinion. But whether Ayurveda said that it is the prognosis is going to be, completely curable, it means Sukhasadhya, Kashtasadhya, what it said. We all know that it has been said that it is a Yapyavadi. Gambiram Bahudhatustam Marma Sandhi Samasritam, Charaka said in Mahachatushpadita, Sandhigata Vyadi is nothing but Yapyavadi. So it is important to understand for every student of Ayurveda that the joint disorders in Ayurveda also are have to be managed. Most of the joint disorders they need to be, given medications for a lifetime. It is possible that out of some 100 cases, we may cure in a much better way at least 30% of the cases, but at least 70% of the patients remain to be treated continuously either with the medicine or with the panchakarma therapies. So then why they should opt Ayurveda when compared to the modern science? Simply because of the reason that Ayurveda does not carry any side effects as far as the medicines or the therapies which we are going to offer them in the arena of the joint diseases. So this is a very important point we have to understand. And also it is definitely cost effective, all these therapies and medications. And traditionally the pain, we have to understand the arthritis is a painful condition. We have different types of pains like nociceptive, neuropathy and neuropathic and nociplastic. Nociceptive is the common type of pain stimuli which arises due to the damage to a particular tissue. So this can happen in all types of joint disorders or any type of injury. Generally, the pain stimuli is carried to the brain. So this is a nociceptive is a common type of pain stimuli, whereas the nociplastic type, this particular type of stimuli is where the observable amount of tissue damage is will not be there, or biochemical parameters also doesn't prove that there is any change in the joint structure or any tissue, but still the patient keeps on complaining the pain. So this could be because of the psychological reasons or because of the reduced pain tolerance in a particular patient. Example is the classical example is the fibromyalgia, where you cannot prove it with any investigation, but still the patient keeps on complaining. So these kind of pains also one has to understand the different types of pains expressed by the patients. Neuropathic pain is the pain which is seen in herpes zoster or the trigeminal neuralgia, peripheral neuropathies, where there is a definite lesion is there, and because of the lesion there is a neuropathic pain. But in general, all these three types of pains keeps on overlapping. But as a doctor, as a physician, we need to understand these different types of pain categories. Okay, so then. As just now I spoke that arthritis is affecting 15% of the Indian population, over 180 million people of India. It is more prevalent than diabetes, AIDS, and cancer. And we all know that in 2006, chikungunya epidemic has put a great burden on the Indian population. Even after 15 years, also we see patients suffering with the joint problems with the chikungunya. And of course, recently we had a COVID outbreak, which is also a viral disorders. And even now, we are getting the patients with the joint disorders, the joint problems with post-COVID kind of symptomatology. So I think there is a need for Ayurveda doctors to really know about all these challenges. Okay, so then according to WHO, almost more than 100 type of rheumatological disorders are there, mild to moderate. It can come to any age person, any sex or race, and not only the joint disorders but also the bone, muscle, systemic diseases like osteoporosis, myositis, all these SLE, all these also come under the purview of a rheumatology. And any patient with unexplained fever, anemia, weakness, weight loss, fatigue, loss of appetite should be examined for the rheumatological problems, especially even the recurrent abortions also, because there is in cases like SLE, there is a possibility of the recurrent abortions also. So these kind of things have to be really examined. Then how to really understand the rheumatological disorders. The simple paradigm for the initial evaluation is whether the patient is having a joint swelling or joint pain. That means whether the patient is having arthritis or arthralgia. If only pain is there, it could be arthralgia. If the swelling is there, it could be arthritis, some inflammatory. So these kind of primary differentiation we have to make, whether it is inflammatory, non-inflammatory, and non-articular. Inflammatory means we can easily find out the redness, swelling, and all those things will be there, which is seen in the cases like rheumatoid arthritis and the septic arthritis, and also like uric acid crystals like gout, which is inflammatory. And non-inflammatory includes osteoarthritis, and non-articular, not exactly in the joint but around the knee, like bursitis, tendinitis. And just now I spoke about the fibromyalgia, where the pain is more muscular, not exactly at the joint. So it's very simple to identify. Whenever the moment patient comes, we have to say whether it is inflammatory or non-inflammatory. I think this particular thing itself goes more in favor of Ayurveda understanding, where inflammatory is directly going in favor of Amavata and Vatarakta, and whereas non-inflammatory is just going in terms of the Vata Vyadis, which is nothing but Sandhigata Vyadi. So though the number of disorders are more, the list is like 100, but still the differentiation, when it comes to the differentiation, it is again it is very simple. Okay, so let us discuss these disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, gout, osteoarthritis, spondyloarthropathy, infectious arthritis, monoarticular joint disorders. So there are Sjogren syndrome, fibromyalgia, polymyositis, polymyalgia rheumatica. These are the most common rheumatological disorders which come to a rheumatologist, and also for an Ayurvedic doctor. All these patients visit Ayurveda doctor also, during their course of the illness. So there is a need for every student of Ayurveda to thoroughly understand about the nature of all these diseases. What Ayurveda identified is in terms of Amavata, Sandhivata, Vatarakta, we know Krostaka Shirsha, and also some conditions like Asti Majjagata Vata, Mamsagata Vata, Tvagata Vata also present in terms of the joint and muscular ailments. So their presentation is also goes in favor of this particular condition, and the treatment line of these conditions also helps the patients. So here, what I am trying to highlight is the approach of Ayurvedic doctor as far as these particular disorders is concerned. What kind of approach we have to make, whether all these disorders can be managed with Ayurveda. If you ask me, in a straight question, can we manage all these rheumatological disorders in Ayurveda? I would say that definitely, except SLE. SLE also we have good medicines and good therapies, but we need to be more cautious in the management of SLE, because it can quickly go into some complications. And also the monoarticular joint ailment, infectious arthritis, which is nothing but a septic arthritis sometimes, so which may need antibiotics. And in some conditions like monoarticular joint diseases like the hemoarthrosis or the tubercular joint. Apart from that, most of the other arthritis, Ayurvedic line of treatment really suits, and patients experience some good relief. So this is what we have to understand actually, understanding the common rheumatological disorders which come to a clinical practice, and what line of treatment we are going to apply. I'm not going to talk much about the medications. More than the medicines, I would like to focus on the principles. Principle is more important. You can choose any medication according to the principles. We know that Dve Sandishete, the number is mentioned in Ayurveda. So very little description of joint disorders is there, but we can see some descriptions like dosha trivida gati, So Sandhi is Marmasti Sandhi is also one of the gati of the dosha. So Kosta, Shaka, and Marmasti Sandhi, which is Madhyama Roga Marga, which is nothing but the Madhyama Roga Marga. And you know, when joint disorders really can affect, or when joints can become loose, this is a very important reference from the Charaka Siddhisthana, which in the Uttara Charaka Siddhisthana, where it is mentioned that Ada Kalvaturam Samshuddhyam Vamanadibihi Durbalam Krisham Alpagni Mukta Sandana Bandinam. Here Chakrapani mentions that Mukta Sandana Bandhanam iti Mukta Sandhi Bandhanam. So Sandhibandha is a very valuable term in Ayurveda. So as far as the joint disorders is concerned, because if you examine the knee joint is enveloped by so many ligaments, and they tightly hold the joint. That is what we are calling it as Sandhibandhana. And Mukta Sandhibandhana means when really it becomes loose, and when it becomes prone to the damage. Such kind of things happen, especially after the Samshuddhyam Vamanadibihi, after Vamana Virechana, the person becomes Durbalam, Krusham, Alpagnim. At that time, there is a possibility of loosening of the joints also. For such patients, you have to really take care of them. Paripalayet. You need to take proper care. You need to give Samsajjana Krama properly. Otherwise, there is a possibility that they may develop joint disorders. This is one entity as far as the Panchakarma is concerned, post Panchakarma measure. But this can be applied to any kind of physical ailment, like any person who developed gastroenteritis. After gastroenteritis, there is a possibility of loosening of the joints. He may develop the arthritis, or any long prolonged illness. After prolonged illness also, again the same kind of situation comes. Like the person will become weak, and there is a possibility of weakening of the joints. So this concept is very important, that it's not that why the joint disorder is happening is because when the person really becomes weak, not just only in the old age. It can happen. That is the reason we call that immunocompromised, or at the early age also. Now the osteoarthritis we are visualizing in our society. So I think there is a need to really work out on this particular concept. And also it has been said that excessive traveling, like Radak Shobat Sandhi Parva Shaidilyam, it has been mentioned, that is traveling, excess traveling is now a common factor. This is also one of the nidana why we are prone for the joint disorders. So there is a need to really look into these aspects. And Parvasti Sandhi Bedasya has been mentioned as one of the Apatarpana Vyadhi. So if you see, actually Sandhi Bandha and Sandhi Shaidilya, two terms are very important as far as the joint disorders are concerned. Shaidilyam Anibida Samyogat. So here Anibida means the loss of the compactness of the joint. Nibida Samyogata, the compactness of the joint. So when the joint is compact, completely enveloped by the proper ligaments, properly held by the ligaments in its proper place, then there is no problem. And that is really maintained by the kapha dosha. And Sandhi Shaidilya could possibly happen because of the vata. So there need to be a balance, between the kapha and vata dosha. So this is a very essential point to understand, that Ayurveda says that the Sandhi Bandha and Sandhi Shaidilya. And also Vata Prakriti, we see, like Satata Sandhi Shabdagaminascha. So Vata Prakriti persons are more prone for the joint disorders. You may say that, we are watching more obese people developing arthritis, but it's not true. I would say that obese people may develop osteoarthritis, but it is also possible really to help them a lot. But when a lean person develops arthritis, I think it is very difficult to manage them. Obese persons, you can also work out on their obesity, and you can improve their condition along with the joint stability. But for a lean person, it's almost impossible once he develops arthritis. And if you see the rheumatoid arthritis patients, most of the rheumatoid arthritis patients, generally they are lean when they get the disease. But over a period of years, once they start consuming the corticosteroids, then they start gaining weight. So to begin with, they have a very lean type of body, composure. So I think it is essential to understand, which type of prakriti people are prone for the systemic type of joint disease and which type of people are developing the degenerative type of joint disease. And as I said, like, joint stability is in the jurisdiction of the kapha dosha, sneho bandha. So bandha means sandhi bandha, has been mentioned in the commentary. Stiratvam ashaidilyam. So these terms really speaks a lot about the stability of the joint. And sandhi shaidilya is mentioned again at two places like astikshaya. So astikshaya also may cause sandhi shaidilyam. And also vata rakta purorupa also we find that sandhi shaidilya term has been mentioned. Svedotyardam navakarsham. So they mentioned it is Sandhi Shaitilyam Alasyam, Sadanam Pidakodgamam. So it is mentioned that Sandhi Shaitilya may happen in Vatarakta. Okay, so with this brief understanding, let us go into the joint disorders. Like, just what we have to do is when a patient comes to us, we have to establish diagnosis from both Ayurveda and modern contemporary approach. And let us identify the etiological factors as mentioned by Ayurveda, because according to modern science, the etiology is not known for majority of the joint disorders. They say that it is an autoimmune phenomenon for the systemic arthritis, and for degenerative arthritis, they say that it could be obesity. But apart from that, they could not identify any etiological factor. But Ayurveda says, like in respect to Amavata, Viruddhahara and Dadi and all those such kind of things are there, hypofunctioning of the Agni, Ama formation. There is a specific method of understanding of the etiological factors. Even in terms of Vatarakta also, we find that there is a specific etiology is mentioned. So identifying the etiology, whether the patient is, following such etiology, better to withdraw it. And then follow the Chikitsa Sutra. Chikitsa Sutra is vital for the management of disorders in Ayurveda. Like sutra means thread. And thread, if you follow the thread, like very recently we had a, kite festival, we call it as a Pongal. So if you follow the thread, you will reach to the kite. So that means if you follow the sutra, you will definitely reach to the destiny. That is the cure. So if you want to really cure a particular disease, try to apply the Chikitsa Sutra. And how to apply Chikitsa Sutra, I think, Amavata Chikitsa Sutra is a wonderful example of, how to really apply Chikitsa Sutra. Just I'm going to explain it in the coming slides. And select the specific Gugulu based on the ingredients. We have to see the Falashruti for every compound, preparation. It's not just that Simana the Gugulu for Amavata or Kaishara Gugulu for Vatarakta. There are many more indications of these Gugulus. I think it is better to go to the important ingredients also. And also sometimes, remissions and exacerbations are possible during the management. It's not that, we started Ayurveda treatment. There is a possibility that, after 1 month, the patient may, start complaining more pains. That could be because of many reasons. The patient might have withdrawn his steroids. The patient might have stopped his disease modifying anti-rheumatoid agents. So you have to have a clear picture what is happening to the patient, why the pain is increasing, whether it is because of the Ayurveda drugs, whether they are not acting properly, or whether it is because of the painkillers which he has withdrawn. So for that, you need to have a thorough understanding of the drugs which patient has been using in the last few months or few years. And sometimes add-on therapy with allopathy might be needed. So it's not that, there is a possibility that sometimes if you don't give painkillers to the patient, there is every possibility that deformity also might happen. If it is very much aggravated, in such conditions, you can go for 1 or 2 painkillers for a week span and for some time to really see through the Ayurveda drugs acting for over a period of time. I was speaking about the Gugulu. Just I would like your attention on this particular table. Like, we have the Gugulus like Trayodashanga Gugulu, though it is mentioned in the Vata Vyadhi Adhikara in Baishaji Ratnavali, but it has got, Ashwagandha, Guduchi, and Shatavari. All these, of course, by the name, as the name itself suggests that they have the Gugulu as one of the important component. But apart from that, Trayodasham Gugulu has got Ashwagandha, Guduchi, and Shatavari, which really acts like, Rasayana over a long period of time. Other indications of Trayodasham Gugulu are Grudrasi, Sandhi, Asti, and Majjagatavata. So we can prescribe Trayodasham Gugulu not just in Vata Vyadhi, but also in other joint conditions. Similarly, Kaishoro Gugulu mentioned in Vatarakta Adhikara, but if you see the ingredients, interestingly, it has got Trifruit, Triphala, and Tanti, which are, Rechana, have Rechana property. So it is Vibandhahara, Kaishoro Gugulu. If you give 2 BD dose, really it, helps the patient to get rid of his constipation. And most importantly, Kaishoro Gugulu is indicated in Prameha Pedica and non-healing ulcers. You can really use with confidence in non-healing ulcers also. Vatari Gugulu, though it is mentioned in Amavata Adhikara, it has got ingredients like Erana and Gandhaka. So the other indications of Vatari Gugulu are the Vatarakta and Sandhivata. So like psoriatic arthritis, you can definitely prescribe Vatari Gugulu, and also the gouty arthritis. Vatari Gugulu is really effective because they also have the skin lesions. So, and also the Eranda is also present. Similarly, Simanada Gugulu also has the got Triphala, Gandhaka, and Eranda. And apart from Amavata, it is also indicated in Vatarakta. Again, Yogaraja Gugulu, it is Chitraka, Pippali, Ajamoda, Jiraka, Yavani, they are Deepana Pachana drugs. So though it is a Gugulu compound, it is very good Agnidipara and Amapachaka drug. So in the early phase of Amavata, I would see the patients who are having the hypofunctioning of Agni Mandya. In such patients, I think it is better to start with Yogaraja Gugulu. Once their Agni improves, you can go for Maha Yogaraja Gugulu, which has the Rasoshadis like Vanga, Rajata, Naga, Loha, and Abraka. So it is in Nirama or Jeerna Amavata Vyadhi, it is useful. And Navaka Gugulu, the patient with obesity, there you can really give the Navaka Gugulu, so Amavata with Staulia. So like that combination of the medicine, medicine has to be really thought. It needs to be thoroughly understood. Not only these Gugulus, but every compound preparation which Ayurveda has got, some kind of real meaning, depth. If you really go through the Shed Dharana Yoga of the of Sushrita, so Ama Shegata Vata, it is mentioned. It has got a beautiful, composition, 6 ingredients. 3 are Rechaka drugs and 3 are Grahi drugs. So it's a balancing. Ayurvedic compound preparations have got a very balanced type of composition. Okay, so just briefly, let us go to the knee joint examination. It is very important. If you don't do the knee joint examination, you are going to fail at some or the other time. Mostly, what we do in outpatient, facilities is just the patient comes and tells that he's having a joint pain. We assume that it is Sandhivata, and we keep on writing the medicines. But at least once you have to pay attention. Very recently, I had one experience like a 40-year-old man came to me with complaining of joint pain. He said he went to several doctors, and now the joint effusion also started. Then I just examined, casually. So then I could see that there is some redness, mild redness is there. Then when I took the detailed history, he could say that he had some bleeding per rectum 1 or 2 times. So that was the only complaint he said. Then I was having a doubt because I have seen this such type of cases previously. Then I was suspecting some kind of joint effusion because of the hemarthrosis, means the blood oozing into the joint. When his coagulation profile was done, there is a factor 8 deficiency was there. Even he was not knowing. It is a surprising factor. It's a genetic disorder, but it was very mild in his case, and he improved only after receiving the factor 8 injections. Okay, so some of the joint conditions, probably, we may have to take the help of the allopathy, contemporary science. But what I mean to say here is we need to examine the joints for the proper understanding. What you have to examine is position of the patient in supine, standing, and walking position, how he is walking, how he is sitting, and also prone position, inspection, palpation, and also during the movement, how he is moving. All these things have to be taken care. Like the prone position is important because you can see some Baker cyst. Sometimes the cyst might be there in the back of the knee, and patient may not identify that. He may just tell the joint pain. So it is better to see that it is some kind of cystic swelling. So in every position you have to see examine the patient, and also standing position like genu valgus, genu varus also are the causes of the arthritis because of the disproportionate weight which falls on the joint. Like this is a Baker cyst, you can see. And the gait, how the patient walks, like antalgic gait. Sometimes patient comes to your OP by bending to one side. So that itself shows that the patient is having the pain in the other joint. And also housemates G bursitis, the I know that is prepatellar bursitis, infrapatellar bursitis, where I know Ayurveda has got a very good management, and also the exostosis, and also the scars, lesions, trauma, surgery, previous surgery. All these things are visible when you examine the joint. So there is a need really to thoroughly examine a particular joint. And when you palpate, you should look for the temperature, and also tenderness, crepitus, and effusion. So most of the students only examine for crepitus, but you need to just go through all the other things also. This is about the joint examination. Now let us come to the arthritis, one by one. Like I said that monoarticular arthritis. So monoarticular arthritis is, one joint. In one particular joint, the patient may have the pain. It could be because of hemophilic arthritis, as just I narrated, and it could be because of the tubercular arthritis. So this is a very important point to remember that, at least I have seen in my clinical practice 30 to 40 tubercular knee joint cases, knee joint arthritis. Patient came with a single joint pain. It was not just responding with our drugs. After 20 days or 1 month, it increases even further. So then I think you need to really go for some investigations. So the ESR, and also the other blood tests, joint X-ray, all those things really may sometimes give a clue, and also some other immunological tests also if it is needed. Sometimes patient may present like with fever and all those things also. But TB knee and TB hip are very common, which happens, and which people tend to overlook. Septic arthritis due to infection, septicemia, cellulitis also can happen in the joint. Traumatic, because of the trauma, single joint arthritis can happen. And gout, monoarticular arthritis is a possibility. Osteoarthritis is also, it also can have the monoarticular arthritis. And malignancy. So these are the things, for which, we need to properly examine. And as a student, or as a PG scholar, we need to go for at least X-ray. So because you're practicing outside, you should not miss anything. X-ray is nothing but pratyaksha pramana. It is X-ray is increasing the scope of our chakshurindriya. It is nothing but a pratyaksha pramana. Just you can go for the X-ray, and you can see what is happening inside. So the hemoarthrosis, it is just like rheumatoid. You can see the cartilage degeneration, and neovascularization. All these things are seen. Osteophyte formation sometimes, but the management is, as I said, correcting the pathology, like factor 8 administration in most of the cases when it happens, or any other coagulation disorder is there. You have to really give that kind of therapy. And then the tubercular joint, as I said, like hip and knee are most commonly affected. Joint space narrowing and erosions will be there. It's just like osteoarthritis. Sometimes it is difficult to differentiate, but as I said, it keeps on increasing. The patient quickly, emaciates, and other constitutional symptoms of the TB starts appearing. So at that time, at least, you have to really understand that there is some problem. Okay, so it is better to go for other investigations. And it improves, if you give the tubercular drugs. Along with that, even Ayurveda supportive drugs also can be given. Sporoarthritis, another possibility is giant cell tumor, as you can see here. Ewing sarcoma, osteosarcoma, chondroblastoma. Though they are rare, but still it is possibility. Almost at least 3 to 4 cases of all such types, have come to our outpatient wing at government Ayurvedic hospital. So you have to go for X-ray. You can see here the X-ray picture, irregular margins of the tumor, where a giant cell tumor is growing within the bone and it is almost has a regular borders. It is benign, it is malignant. So you should not miss anything, as a doctor. And coming to the, as I said, like, all these kind of monoarthritis, sometimes you may have to refer the patients for higher centers for, like higher, some other investigations also, supportive investigations and management. Coming to the rheumatoid arthritis, which is very common arthritis, after osteoarthritis, it is a systemic chronic inflammatory characterized by inflammation of the joints, especially the synovial membrane is affected. It can completely damage the joints, like you can see here. The total damage of the joints is a possibility. It is a bilaterally symmetrically affecting arthritis. Diagnostic criteria is very important for rheumatoid arthritis. So it is arthritis of three or more joints, arthritis of the wrist. So, and the small joints, here it is the small joints and symmetric involvement of the joints, and morning stiffness of greater than 45 minutes or 1 hour. So these are the four factors. These four are clinical factors like morning stiffness, arthritis in three or more following joints, arthritis of the small joints, and symmetrical involvement of the joints. All these are the clinically you can observe. Then the three next three things, even rheumatoid also nodules also you can observe in a patient. But positive rheumatoid factor and radiographic changes, you need to go for X-ray and also the blood test. Among these seven, if you have the four things, four are positive. That means that if you can identify the four factors, then you can call it as a rheumatoid arthritis. So if you exclude rheumatoid nodules, positive RF factor, and the radiological changes, even then the patient can be rheumatoid arthritis. You can call him as rheumatoid arthritis, even if he is RA negative. So RA test has got nothing to do with the rheumatoid arthritis. What is the significance of RA test is if RA is positive, it is possible that the patient may go into a very chronic phase of arthritis. But RA negative also possible that he may be called as rheumatoid arthritis, provided all these symptoms exist for more than 6 weeks. So this clinical criteria is very important and highly practical for rheumatoid arthritis. So in rheumatoid, what is happening? The synovial membrane is inflamed and it becomes thick and it erodes the bone and it becomes like pannus and it just completely destroys the joint, which is followed by the fibrous ankylosis and bony ankylosis. Finally, there is no space. The two bones have joined together. So this is what is the pathology in rheumatoid arthritis. Management of RA in modern medicine is nothing but non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin, indomethacin, ibuprofen, naproxen, pyroxicam, diclofenac. The common routinely used all NSAIDs will be tried. Disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs are one of the excellent drugs in modern science as far as the RA is concerned. Not only RA, in all other joint disorders, they are useful, like hydrochloroquine sulfate. It is a drug which is given in malaria. It is actually an anti-malarial drug, but it is highly effective even in rheumatoid arthritis. Also, it is given HCQS along with the sulfasalazine are also given in ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, because even they also fall under the category of the joint disorders, because these patients also express some joint complaints. And also methotrexate is a very popular drug. Methotrexate is an anti-cancerous drug. Leflunomide also given. Corticosteroids like prednisolone, methylprednisolone, hydrocortisone, dexamethasone, they are all prescribed in rheumatoid arthritis. Immunosuppressants like azathioprine, mycophenolate, cyclophosphamide, cyclosporine are used quite commonly, routinely. And biologics, these are the new set of drugs which have come into the market. So the biologics are genetically recombinant drugs which act on the DNA, and they are really said to be effective, but all these drugs have got a lot of side effects. They might be effective for a few months, few years, but afterwards you see a lot of side effects like HCQS. The storage site of hydrochloroquine itself is retina, so you need to go for the uh, eye checkup. Otherwise, there is a possibility of sometimes blindness also can happen. So the understanding of all these things are important for an Ayurvedic doctor, because a patient who is using all these drugs comes to you. If you don't know that the patient has been using HCQS for last 1 year, and if you just start giving your drugs, if anything happens to his eye, he may attribute to you. Similarly, methotrexate is a potential complication is bone marrow suppression or a liver damage. It can cause liver damage also. So methotrexate, if anyone is using methotrexate, they have to go for liver function test. So I think every drug has got potential side effects like steroids. They can cause Cushing syndrome, diabetes, and even the hypertension, calcium deficiency. And the all the NSAIDs have the side effects like ulcer forming, gastritis. So each and every drug has got the side effects. So that is the reason why Ayurveda is needed. This is one point which has to be highlighted to the patient, to the society, and for that fear only the patient really approaches Ayurvedic doctor. They may give some immediate relief, but which is not complete. Again, the patient has got the disease increases over a period of time. So Ayurveda really comes for rescue. Like steroid therapy is sometimes called the bridge therapy. It is given between the DMARDs and the NSAIDs. It is given for the purpose of anti-inflammatory. Sometimes steroids might have a role to prevent the deformities. For a short period, if any patient is taking, that is fine. But if for a longer period, a slow dose of steroid is really not good. So all those things we can withdraw slowly. If you have an understanding about all these modern drugs, slowly you can withdraw, but it has to be done in a gradual fashion, not at once. If the patient is using HCQS, methotrexate is given weekly once. It is given in a dose of 2.5 to 7.5 mg once a week. And when a patient uses methotrexate, they have to use folic acid. Otherwise, folic acid deficiency can happen. So these kind of knowledge you should have. What is happening with allopathic drugs? Sometimes what happens is we may be treating the side effects of the allopathic drugs rather than the disease, or the side effects of allopathic drugs will be attributed to the Ayurveda doctors. Sometimes without the knowledge, the patient can really complain. Low dose steroids are generally preferred. Steroids are given in the morning time, and because body also produces steroids. Steroids are produced in the human body in the morning at about 6 to 8 a.m. So that is the reason steroids should be taken in the early hours, so that it goes in the axis of the normal body mechanism. And also vitamin D calcium supplementation is must if anyone is using steroid, because it can cause osteoporosis, it can cause calcium depletion. Steroids also can cause steroid dependency. So side effects, as I just said, hyperacidity, ulcers, osteoporosis, secondary diabetes, hypertension, Cushing syndrome, weight gain, and increased susceptibility to infections because they are immunosuppressants. So DMRDs, as I said, like HCQS, methotrexate, MMF, they are sometimes good, in a long run. You can do, as a doctor, Ayurveda doctor, you can do one thing. If the patient is using a methotrexate in a dose of 20 mg, you can slowly reduce every week, or maybe every 15 days, 2.5 mg can be reduced, and you can bring it to 2.5 mg, and you can keep it there, and give Ayurveda drugs side by side. Don't completely withdraw it if he is using a higher dose of the methotrexate. That again really can really take the patient back to the severity. So keeping a very low dose of methotrexate, if he is using a high dose, can really help, if you start Ayurveda drugs also. And all these DMARDs have the nephrotoxic, like methotrexate, leflunomide, mycophenolate, all have their renal damaging properties. So it is a very interesting thing to understand that so many side effects are there with the allopathic drugs, but as there is no alternative, patients are taking. I think Ayurveda should come forward as an alternative, good alternative. Biologics, as I said, it is prepared by recombinant DNA technique, and it particularly targets the selected molecules in the cascade of events, and autoimmunity is really checked by the biologics. It is manufactured in a living system such as a microorganism, plant, or animal cells, and biologics can slow the progression of arthritis. They cannot cure. So again, the problem is the same with the thing. So that is the reason why we have to understand what concept Ayurveda said. Like Charaka said, it is a Yapya Vyadhi. Whatever superior drugs the modern medicine is trying to produce, but they can only slow down the process, but they cannot completely cure. So this is what we have to understand. Even biologics are also failing, and biologics have a potential complications also. As you can see, it can cause lung infections, liver damage, and a risk of certain cancers. So it may not happen with in majority of the patient, but still that possibility is there. One has to be very very cautious while taking all these drugs. Well, coming to Ayurveda, Amavata is a very popular disease. Surprisingly, it is mentioned in the Lagutrai, not in the Bruhatrai. And I would say that this Chikitsa Sutra of Amavata is really highlight thing, in the entire rheumatology. It is directing, all of us in the management of every joint disorders. And Nidan has been mentioned. We all know like Viruddhahara Chestasya, Mandagnir Nishalasya cha, Snigdam Bhuktavato Annam Vyayamam Kurvatasa. So there is a particular Nidan I mentioned in the Amavata, and the Agni has been given some importance here. So if one has to protect the Agni, so the Samprapti has been mentioned, like Ahara, Vihara, and Manasika doshas may cause Agni Mandya, and which may lead to the Amavisha formation. And when this Ama combines with the Vata, it is called Samavata. It moves in the from the GIT tract to the all over the body, like from Costa to the Sarva Shariragata Ama, it is called. When it is Costa, then the treatment could be Vamana Virechana. But when it becomes a Sarva Shariragata Ama, then the treatment is Deepana Pachana. So this is mentioned even in the Charaka Samhita Grahani Adhyaya. So here Trika Sandhi is affected, and the whole body is affected, all the joints are affected. And Samanya Lakshana of and Prabhuddha Lakshana of Amavata have been mentioned, like Angamardo, Arichitrishna, Alasyam, Gauravam Jvara, Apaka Shuna Tanganam, Amavata Salakulu, joint disease with a swelling, with fever, with heaviness. You can call it as Amavata, Amalakshanas. And when it becomes severe, it can affect all the joints like Hasta, Pada, Shiro, Gulfa, Trika, Janu, all types of sandhis. Vrishika Damshavat, the pain is very severe. Coming to the treatment aspect, it has been mentioned that in Yoga Ratnakara that Ruksha Sveda Vidatavyo, Valuka Potale Sada, Upanahascha Kartavyo. So Upana is one of the best treatment. Ruksha Sveda, as we all know, with the salt or sand fermentation, it is very effective. Some people may ask, how the autoimmune disease can be controlled by giving the Ruksha Sveda. Whatever pathology is happening in the rheumatoid arthritis, which is autoimmune, it is happening in the joints. So in the joints, the antibody antigen complexes are, they are attached to the joint capsule, and it is inviting the inflammation. And when you are really putting the Ruksha Sveda, it is observed that the inflammation is reduced and autoimmune process is also low. That is the reason why ESR also comes down. The frequency of the Sveda has to be increased. Generally, we advise Sveda to be done, but how far, how long? And if you go to the Sveda, Samyak Sveda Lakshanas also, there it has been not mentioned the time. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, time is not mentioned. What Charaka said, Shita Shula Viparame Stamba Gaurava Nigrahe. So, till the Shula is reduced, at least temporarily, when the patient is putting Valaka Sveda, at least temporarily, patient should feel relief. If that happens over a period of time, slowly the autoimmune process is checked. So very small things, small corrections are needed. So that is the reason why I advise, like Valaka Sveda at least 5 to 6 times in a day for an interval of 5 to 10 minutes. So such kind of corrections we have to make in our treatment. The principle is wonderful. There is nothing else is needed, but how to follow it. And this is the excellent therapeutic principle, like Langanam Svedanam Tiktam Deepanani Katunicha Virechanam Snehapanam Vasteyas Chama Marute Saindava Dyanavasasya Ksharavasti Prasasyati. So this Chikicha Sutra, like how to follow this Chikicha Sutra. So whether to give Langana, Svedana, or Deepana, Katu, or whether all of these things are needed. And Virechana Snehapana means how to implement. So we developed a small model like for at least 45 days, course we try to give to the patients. Like 10 days, we used to give Langana in terms of both qualitative and quantitative changes in the diet. Then Deepana, Pachana, Katu. For that, we have taken Chitrakadi Vati and Langanam, Swedanam, Tiktam. So Svedana for Svedana, Valuka Sveda as a criteria we have taken for Tikta Rasa, Rasna Gugulu. Rasna is Tikta Rasa. Rasna Gugulu can be taken. Even Amruta Gugulu also can be taken. Then for 10 days, this kind of regimen was given. Then afterwards, Snehapana and Virechana. For that, we have selected Gandharva Taila with lukewarm water in a dose of 20 ml per day for at least 10 days. Of course, the quantity has been adjusted according to the number of motions to the patient. So this serves the purpose of Snehapana and Virechana both. So then the next after 20 days, from 25 day onwards, Anuvasana Vasti with Saindavada Taila has been given for 5 days. Then Vaitarana Vasti in the form of Kshara Vasti, where Saindavalavana, Gudas, and Saindavadi Taila was taken, and Amlika and Gomutra was taken, and it was given for the patient for 8 days, which is excellent. Really, it produces a miraculous effect within a short period of time. And we also try to measure the pH of the components of all these Vaitarana Vasti. And as to our surprise, we could see that when all those were analyzed, the combination was coming around exact 7, the pH, because some of them are acidic, some of them are totally basic, but still when you are combining them, the total pH of this Vaitarana Vasti was coming around 7. So this is what the combination of Ayurvedic formulations. We need to have some scientific understanding about these things. Okay, so this was given, like in a 45 days span of time, we try to implement the whole Chikitsa Sutra. And we could find to our utmost surprise that most of the patients are really doing well. Yes, of course, some patients may have the exacerbations, aggravation might be possible, but they may need another cycle of the therapy. Okay, so this is what the Vaitarana Vasti, how the quantity of Vaitarana Vasti ingredients which we used. So as mentioned in the classics, of course. So this is what I wanted to tell, that we have got an excellent Chikitsa Sutra in terms of Amavata, and probably in the same manner, we have to implement our Chikitsa Sutras for different diseases. Okay, so then the question comes that whether we can manage the deformities. Like here you can see that Botaniere deformity, Swan deformity, Z deformity, which are quite common in rheumatoid arthritis. Can we manage them? Probably not. Once the joint is totally damaged, at that time it is highly difficult to really make them normal. Probably they may need some surgical correction in the early phase. If any patient is coming to you with a deformities in one hand, for one finger he had a deformity, but at that time if you start Ayurvedic treatment, I'm very sure that he's not going to get deformities in any other finger, any other part of the body. So Ayurveda is excellent in preventing the deformities. Even though patient may complain little bit pain, they may complain pain for months or sometimes 1 or 2 years also. Doctor, still I have a pain. The disease is not completely cured, but it is very clear. We can say that deformities cannot happen once you start implementing the treatment principle of Ayurveda. Then SLE, the similar lines of treatment are possible for SLE. The Amavata treatment line is very much effective even for systemic lupus erythematosus, which is again autoimmune disease, but in rheumatoid you do not see systemic symptoms, even though it is also systemic disorder. But systemic symptoms in rheumatoid are comparatively much lower than the SLE. SLE very rapidly progresses with internal manifestations. So you need to be very, very cautious and careful if you are treating a patient of SLE. It can relapse, and it can cause some serious skin, kidney, and hematological abnormalities. As you can see in the table that all the constitutional symptoms like fever, arthralgia, malor rash, the butterfly rash, proteinuria, like SLE affects the kidneys, and it can cause proteinuria. So finally, it is called lupus nephritis. So it is very important to monitor the serum creatinine levels and also complete urine examination if you are treating a patient of SLE at least once in 2 or 3 months. And they may experience neuropsychiatric problems, pulmonary symptoms like pleurisy, chest pain. Many SLE patients have the cough. Cough is a very common complaint. Lungs are affected to some extent. They are present with gastrointestinal symptoms like oral ulcerations, and also the Raynaud's phenomenon is a possibility. Ocular symptoms are there, and SLE patients have the high risk of spontaneous abortions and stillbirths. So SLE patient, if female patient is there, definitely there should be a caution. And also the hematological cytopenias are common like leukopenia, lymphopenia, anemia, thrombocytopenia. So all are possible with the SLE. So multiple symptomatology SLE presents with. So definitely there need to be, our approach need to be more cautious. But I am very sure that SLE also is manageable with the implementation of Amavata treatment principle, but with more caution. And if the patient is having proteinuria, you need to really think of managing those symptoms. Like a diagnosis of SLE, there are 11 symptoms. At least 4 out of 11, if they are present, it is SLE, like malar rash, skin rash, photosensitivity, mouth or oral ulcers, nose ulcers, non-erosive arthritis, cardiopulmonary involvement, kidney disease, neurological disorders, so blood disorder, immunological disorders, and anti-nuclear antibodies. So presence of all these things, at least 4 out of 11, if they are present, it could be SLE. And investigations are very important and interesting in SLE. Like anti-nuclear antibody has got 100% specificity with SLE. Means if essentially SLE patient is there, definitely ANA will be positive. But some healthy persons also may have the SLE positivity, which is called false positive. But you cannot miss an SLE patient. In SLE patient, definitely ANA is positive. That is called 100% specificity. And anti-double stranded DNA is another test which is done in the recent past. It has got 75% specificity for SLE. Presence of anti-double stranded DNA indicates greater risk of lupus nephritis. Means if DS DNA, anti-DS DNA is present, that means that those patients are prone for the kidney disorders. Okay, so this is another point which we have to just look into it. And also the phospholipid antibodies, APLs, they are called anti-phospholipid antibodies. If they are present, if they are only 60% specificity, but still women with lupus, if they have this anti-phospholipid antibodies positive, there is a possibility of miscarriage. So this has to be a important test for those patients. And also the anti-SSA, anti-SSB antibodies, they act against they are specific against the ribonucleic acid. If they are present, they indicate the neonatal lupus, especially in children, the neonates. Sometimes, the neonates also present with the lupus, newborns. So every test has got some kind of information. It is giving some information. So it is better if it is needed. We can advise, or we can just go through the investigations which patient have to have a better understanding, so as to treat without any complication. And CRP and ESR, what CRP and ESR indicate is they are acute phase reactants. For example, SLE or rheumatoid arthritis, as a matter of fact, is a chronic disease. Sometimes the patient may be very mild without any symptoms. At that time, CRP, ESR might be very mild. They were very minimal. But when the disease increases, the CRP levels, ESR levels also may suddenly increase. So they are indicating acuteness of the illness. So it is a marker for inflammation. If CRP and ESR reduce, that means that you are sure that inflammation is less. And we observed that with Valukasveda, just with Valukasveda, CRP and ESR will come down. Many patients will ask, Doctor, my ESR is so high. How can it come down? If it is done for 21 days continuously, at least 4 to 5 times in a day, you can definitely see the change in the ESR levels. And you have to go for urine protein, microalbuminuria, serum creatinine, LFT, ultrasonography, abdomen, of course, renal biopsy in very rare cases. So these are the different investigations which are needed for SLE. treatment is absolutely similar lines to the rheumatoid arthritis in modern medicine, like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, biologics, and glucocorticoids. These are the four to five treatment therapy modules which are present available for all joint and connective tissue disorders. So sometimes our students used to ask, sir, you are prescribing Gugulu, Sveda, and Virechana, the same line of treatment for all diseases. I think same set of diseases require same therapy lines. Like in modern medicine, they found a similar type of therapeutic modules like NSAIDs, DMARDs, biologics, and glucocorticoids. Similarly, we have Langana, Pachana, Deepana, then of course Valaka Sveda, then we have the Virechana, Snehapana. So like that, we have got our own method of similar type of therapeutic regimen for all types of joint and connective tissue disorders. So line of treatment of SLE is following the Amavata Chikitsa in the form of Deepana, Pachana, and of course Phenameha Chikitsa if the patient is having the proteinuria. For Phenameha, Sushrita said Triphala, Aragvada, Draksha, Kashaya. It is really effective. If you give continuously for the patient of proteinuria, you can also prescribe it for the nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome also presents with proteinuria. So loss of protein in the urine causes the phena. That is why it is called Phenameha. So along with Avipatikara Churnam, because Avipatikara Churnam is also indicated in Vimshati Pramehas, so it can be used Avipatikara Churna in the night and all these kashayas in the morning. One of the best management strategies for the proteinurias, especially in SLE and the nephrotic syndrome. And sometimes Rasayana treatment management, line of management is also needed for SLE. Shwasa Kasa Chikitsa sutras also might be needed for implementation. I am just telling about the approach. We have got so many medicines which we can prescribe depending on the need. Of course, gouty arthritis, you can see the uric acid crystal deposits. It is an inflammatory disorder. Monoarticular arthritis. So gout is again three types, like acute gout, chronic gout, and asymptomatic hyperuricemia. Acute gout is a very painful condition. It can happen for few days, like episode may last for 2 to 3 days. Very severe pain. Sometimes any type of painkiller may not be really effective, and in Vata it is definitely a symptom of Vata Rakta, where a severe inflammation, redness is there. Padayor Moolamastaya, so it starts from the big toe leg. So it is similar to the Vata Rakta type of presentation. And in acute gout, Sveda Karma is contraindicated. So what you can do is you can go for the Virechana. You can definitely prescribe Mrudu Virechana with Trivru Churna, or maybe with Gandharvasa Taila. But other drugs, like we have got some good drugs like Kaishora Gugulu, Vatari Gugulu, which are effective in Vatarakta. In a slightly higher dose, it has to be given in acute dose, acute gout, maybe 6 tablets of 500 grams, at least, or 250 grams for the patient. So at least 3 grams per day dose of Gugulu can be given in acute dose, acute gout conditions. In chronic gout is a little bit more stable gout, where patient is having a mild pain that is totally manageable with Ayurvedic type of therapy. Asymptomatic hyperuricemia also is manageable with Ayurvedic line of treatment. Like if you follow the Vata Rakta treatment, like just giving Rakta Mokshana, Vasti, and also the Guda Haritaki, and Pipali Vardhamana Yoga is a very excellent type of management, especially for chronic gout and also asymptomatic hyperuricemia. You can start with 3 Pipali, increase up to 12, and you can withdraw. You can select a shorter regimen. And we tried it in chronic gout and asymptomatic hyperuricemia with some good results. So modern therapy of gout is NSAIDs, colchicine, steroids again, but uricosuric drugs like probenecid and xanthine oxide inhibitors like allopurinol, they are some excellent drugs for temporary use, but not for a permanent remedy. Acute gout, they are effective to reduce the pain. Okay, but they have again their complications, like they can contribute to the formation of the kidney stones, and diarrhea, and bone marrow suppression. So there are so many types of complications which are possible if it is used for a longer run. And my management of Vatarakta, I said, like Guda Haritaki. Guda Haritaki, Pipali Vardhamana Rasayana. Classically, it is mentioned by Sushruta, which is effective, especially in chronic gout and asymptomatic hyperuricemia. And Mrudu Samvahana, you cannot go for the for Mardana or Abhyanga, just Mrudu Samvahana, mild application of oil with Pinda Taila or Sahacharadi Taila. Shatadota Gruta, sometimes it is effective, especially in acute gout. And Virechana Ardhamatrika Vasti prescribed by Chakratata is effective in Vatarakta. And we have done a work also in our department, and clinically also we prescribe for many patients of Vatarakta. Kaishara Kukulu, Guda Haritaki, Chandanadi Vati, Madhu Esti Churna, Shatavari Gruta. So all these things are effective in the management of Vatarakta or gout. Then the Ardhamatrika Vasti of Chakradatta, where the Dashamula and Madanaphala Kashaya is used as a Kashaya. Shatapushpa Kalka, Sahacharadi Tailam, Saindava Lavana, and Makshikam. So this is really effective in the management of the Vatarakta. And Upanaha with Dashamula, Kwadachurna, and Manjista, Shariba. So in the severe ankle pain and also the big toe pain, this kind of Upanahas are exclusively useful. Of course, this is related to the fibromyalgia patient, where the whole leg was in a pain. But this is related to Vatarakta, where Upanaha can be applied. So, and coming to the osteoarthritis, another type of degenerative arthritis where the cartilage is damaged. So, where because of the weight bearing, prolonged weight bearing on the knee joint, it is a possibility. And diagnosis, it is very easy to, it's a clinical diagnosis, pain in the knee. And along with over age of 50 years, if the patient is having, and also less than 30 minutes of morning stiffness, crepitus on active motion, bony tenderness, bony enlargement. So they could be criteria. It could be one of the criteria of clinical diagnosis. But of course, it is not that much needed. It is easy to diagnose in the clinical setting, and also X-ray is helpful to understand. And it could be understood in terms of Vata Purna Triti Sparsha Shodha Sandhigate Anila Prasarana Akunchanayo Pravurtischa Savedana, as mentioned by Charaka in the Chikichasana. So pain while walking, especially while flexion and extension of the leg. And also Vata Purna Triti Sparsha is mentioning about the crepitus of the joint. And treatment of Sandhivata, we have got so many approaches. I think we need not worry about the referring the patient for the joint replacement therapy. I'm very sure even the grade 3, grade 4 osteoarthritis also, if it is if you treat for at least 6 months to 1 year, and maximum span, I'm telling, patients will improve. Or maybe they need to continue medicines for a few more years if it is needed. A patient with 70 years, probably they may have to use for another 5 to 10 years minimal drugs. But all these therapies are effective, like Samanya Vata Vyadhi Chikitsa. You can apply Abhyanga, Svedana, Janupichu, Januvasti, Janudhara, Matravasti, Majjavasti, which we have been doing by collecting the bone marrow of the goat, and we boil it in milk, Majja Kshiravasti we call it, and that is given to the patients of cerebral palsy we are giving, and also for osteoarthritis. So because of the cartilage breakdown, we could see that especially Majjavasti, those who patients who take Majjavasti in osteoarthritis, they gain a lot of strength. They feel the good strength in a very short span of time. And of course, Snehapana, Upanaha. Upanaha is also one of the important measure, and Rasayana therapies. So there are plenty of drugs you can choose, like Rasna Gugulu, Punarnava, Lashanadivati, Vata Vidvamsini, Ashwagandha Churnam, Pravala Panchamrut, Gandharvasadi Thailam, Dashamolarista, and Yogaraja Gugulu with gold, and Bruhat Chagalyadi Grutam. So any of these drugs, all these drugs based on the composition, based on the requirement. For example, if the patient is having more swelling, go for Punanava Gugulu. Patient having more pain, Lashana is best Vatahara drug. You can choose Lashanadivati. And Vata Vidvamsini could be a routine drug. Okay, so these and Gandharvastha Thailam is good when a patient is also having the constipation. So like that, depending on the need, you can go for the selection of the drugs. And Upanaha is again one important measure which can improve the patient's condition very quickly. In a span of 1 week, the patient's pain can reduce. Upanaha, if it is done with Svedopaka Dashamani drugs mentioned in the Charaka, that can be used for doing the Upanaha. And of course, there are plenty of other references are also there. So it is one of the effective method of management of the osteoarthritis. There is a group of disorders, one more disease group called spondyloarthropathies. It is a type of joint disorder which affects the spine, the central skeleton, not the peripheral joints, like rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, osteoarthritis. Mostly they are affecting the peripheral skeleton. Of course, osteoarthritis also can happen at the low back, but predominantly they are affecting in the peripheral skeleton. But spondyloarthropathies, they happen at the central skeleton, the cervical spine, the dorsal spine, or the lumbar spine also, and also the sacroiliac joint. Most importantly, sacroiliac joints are affected in spondyloarthropathies. What are the group of disorders which come under the spondyloarthropathies? Ankylosing spondylosis, Reiter's arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, and inflammatory bowel disease associated arthritis like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Some undifferentiated type of arthritis, juvenile type of arthritis, spondyloarthropathy. So it is again a special group of arthritis which affects the central skeleton. So how it is generally diagnosed, like presence of the backache, low backache with the sacroiliitis. So sacroiliitis is very important finding. They come to the doctor with the pain in the hip. Usually these patients are 25 to 40 years of age and HLA-B27 positive. It is genetic predisposition might be there. It is not compulsory, but some of the patients, you can find out. Along with that, they may have other symptoms like arthritis, and this is enthesitis is the inflammation of the ligaments. Uveitis, inflammation of the involvement of the eye, psoriasis, IBD. So any of these factors, if is a combination, it is present, you can diagnose the patient as the spondyloarthropathy. So here, sometimes patients may have the plantar fasciitis also, axial arthritis is there, uveitis is there, and also costochondral pain. The anterior side of the chest, they complain of pain. ESR is very high in ankylosing spondylosis patients. HLA-B27 is usually positive. They have pain mostly during the night times, whereas rheumatoid arthritis patient, they have pain in the morning time. You can see the sacroiliac joint is affected. The here you can see the joint is pretty much normal, but it is erosion. Here the erosion is there. The whiteness you can see here on the both sides it is present. Sacroiliatic joint, especially on the ilium side of the ilium, you can see the erosion, irregularity, and narrowing joint space. Finally, they unite, so causing severe pain to the patient. So sacroiliate is one of the important identifying symptom of the ankylosing spondylosis. If a patient of 20 to 40 years of age, a male person is coming to you with such complaints, probably you can think of ankylosing spondylosis. Over a period of time, the all these disc spaces and the ligaments unite together, which is called syndesmophytes, a fusion of the vertebrae, and it is called bamboo spine. So this is bamboo spine. You can see the straightening of the spine, they cannot bend. At this time, it is just like a vata vyadhi, but in the early phases of ankylosing spondylitis, it is like amavata. So you have to treat amavata line of management. If the patient is recently diagnosed, go for valuka sveda, vaitarnavasti, follow the amavata line of treatment. And you can also give astigata vata chikitsa if when the patient is having sacroiliitis, like pain, like tikta kshiravasti can be given. And also sandhivata line of management also can be given, like abhyanga nadi sveda, when it becomes really chronic. So the treatment options, treatment approach depends on uh, the condition of the patient. you cannot say that once you have written Amavata on a prescription, that doesn't mean that you cannot give Nadi Sveda to the patient. I differ on this point with many of my colleagues, because Amavata patient over a period of time, Ama may subside with a treatment, or over a period of time, only Vata may remain. Swelling after certain years, the patients just have only pain. So at that time he needs Nadi Sveda. At that times he may need Snehapana also sometimes. So I think it is better to go for just the stage wise therapy, not just label one disease and stick on to it. Like psoriasis could be kusta, but psoriatic arthritis could be vata rakta. So yes, in psoriatic arthritis patients, you may go for the vasti, which is otherwise not indicated in kusta. So this kind of differentiation has to be there. And the next slide itself is psoriatic arthritis. It is a non-symmetrical type of arthritis. It may affect one joint at one side. No, doesn't follow the bilateral symmetrical rule. It comes under spondyloarthropathy, joint pain, stiffness, very severe pain will be there. Of course, the treatment is again methotrexate, which is given in rheumatoid arthritis. HCQS, which is given in rheumatoid arthritis. Hydrochloroquine sulfate, again it is given. Steroids and NSAIDs. So here, for psoriatic arthritis, like Kusta, Vata I just mentioned that you can go for the Vata treatment if the patient is having psoriatic arthritis, like Virechana, Shamana Snehapana, Panchaprasrutaka Vasti, which is indicated in Kusta, is also as a special case, but it is also useful in the psoriatic arthritis. Rakta Mokshana, of course, Kaishara Gugulu, Vatare Gugulu. Vatare Gugulu is indicated because it has got Gandhaka and Eranda. It is directly indicated in Baishaja Ratnavali for the Vatarakta and also for Amavata. Chandanadivati, Estimadu Churnam, and many more drugs like Mahatiktaka Grutam also is a very good option for the management of the psoriatic arthritis for Shamana purpose. These are the ingredients of Panchatikta, Panchaprasrutakavasti, which we are giving in both Kusta and the Vatarakta, like psoriatic arthritis also we administer. Infectious arthritis, another type. So you should be very cautious when a joint is swollen, when it is red, when it is slightly inflamed. It could be because of infection when the patient is also having some fever. Usually post-viral chikungunya have got some sometimes they come with some infectious arthritis. So infectious arthritis exactly is presenting the symptoms in the terms of pittaja vata rakta, like vidaha, vedana, murcha, sveda, mada, brahma, raga, paka, beda. So almost all symptoms mentioned in the pittaja vata rakta are present in the infectious arthritis. And here the treatment principle is virechana, grutakshirapana, seka. So Shita Parisheka, so all such kind of measures can be given. Triphala Gugulu, Shetavari Gruta, Pinda many other drugs, you can use for reducing the infection and inflammation and also the edema. Sjogren syndrome, it is associated with many types of arthritis like rheumatoid, SLE, scleroderma, myositis, vasculitis, many types of connective tissue disorders. They associated with Sjogren syndrome, where dryness of the eyes and dryness of mouth are the symptoms. Treatment line is again Amavata line of treatment initially, followed by Vatahara management, because it is a dryness is predominantly there. When the patient is also having the joint swelling, go for Amavata line of treatment. Once the joint swelling is reduced, then go for Vatahara management like Akshitarpana, Gandusha, Trifalagruta, with Trifalagruta, and also other Vatahara measures definitely improve the symptoms of the Sjogren syndrome. Then very interesting conditions like polymyalgia rheumatica, where the pain happens only in the shoulders and the hip joints, very severe pain. So such patients comes to us. Actually, they complain pain in the both shoulders, muscle stiffness in the shoulders and hip, and great difficulty in getting up from the bed. So, and another condition called fibromyalgia, where the pain is predominantly present in the muscles, along with the mild pain in the joints like knee joint and small joints, but mostly they have the muscle pains at different points. Tenderness is there. They also have the insomnia. Sleeplessness is a very remarkable presentation with fibromyalgia and also mood changes. So in modern science, they give NSAIDs, antidepressants, stress management, are planned for this. But if you examine the Asti Majjagata Vata, Bedo Asti Parvanam, Sandishulam, Mamsa Balakshayaha, the weakness which is seen in patients, Aswapnaha, so insomnia, Santata Ruk. So this is exactly present, in the fibromyalgia. Management is Bahya Abhyantara Sneha. Very simple management, just Abhyanga and also the Snehapana. So if you just take care of these things, don't think that it is a fibromyalgia. How can we manage? Just stick on to the Chikitsa Sutra. Over a period of time, it will produce a result. Only we have to assure the patient and we have to see whether the patient is going into any complications or not. If the patient is maintaining a status quo, also that is fine. Two more conditions, the last two conditions, like polymyositis and dermatomyositis, they also present with muscle weakness. Muscle enzymes are raised, like CPK levels are very much highly increased, and also the electromyogram changes will be there. Joint pains will be there. So joint involvement with muscle weakness. So it is not a neurological disorder. It is a definitely a rheumatological problem, polymyositis. But dermatomyositis, along with all these symptoms, they have a typical rash. So the symptoms of polymyositis are comparable with Sarvanga Vata, and the treatment line is Abhyanga Vasti. So the very simple management is sufficient for them. Even Kshirabala Taila Vasti is going to improve the case of the polymyositis. Routine Snehasveda is sufficient. But whereas the dermatomyosis, here, the along with the joint and muscle problems, they have the skin ailment, like the skin patches are present over the joints. You can see here, over the joints the skin lesions are seen. Also on the both hands, almost all joints, you can the patient present with such kind of symptoms. In Vata Rakta, it has been mentioned like Shavarana Mandalotpatti, Pani Pada Tala, Anguli, Gulfa, Manibandha, Prabhutishu. So the same presentation is mentioned in Vata Rakta. So Vata Rakta line of treatment can be applied. This sign is called Gottran sign, where the skin lesions are seen over the joints. Usually, this kind of presentation is not seen in psoriatic arthritis. Psoriasis can happen anywhere, but this is a very special disorder, dermatomyositis, and even they have a heliotrope rash where the over the eyelids the skin rash is seen, and shawl sign over the neck the rash is visible. Okay, so this is a very peculiar type of disorder, and they come to clinic. They happen to visit the OPDs of Ayurveda. So the Vatrakta line of treatment is applicable. So finally, the all the rheumatological tests I just mentioned, that anti-nuclear antibodies, anti-double stranded antibodies, rheumatoid factor, anti-CCP, which is very important in rheumatoid arthritis, C-reactive protein, ESR, ANCA, which is for the SLE vasculitis, SSA and SSB, anti-SSA, SSB for Sjogren syndrome and scleroderma, uric acid for gout, synovial aspirations for gout, urate crystals, and pseudo gout, it is calcium crystals. So investigations are also sometimes, they may give us a clue. And if you just go to the treatment approach, it is surprising to see that in every disease, the same therapy is given in modern science, like NSAIDs, DMRDs, corticosteroids, biologics. Somewhere you can find, like in fibromyalgia, antidepressants are there, and infectious arthritis, antibiotics. Otherwise, it is mostly the same line of management for all types of arthritis and connective tissue disorders. So I think in Amavata also we can just apply the Amava in Ayurveda also we can apply Amavata line of treatment, Vatarakta line of treatment wherever it is needed, and also Majjagata Vata, Sarvanga Vata management, line of management. So we have plenty of options uh, according to the dosha, according to the presentation. we can manage. As I said, we need to be cautious while managing the SLE and infectious arthritis and also monoarticular arthritis. This table is very important. The choosing the right gugulu, right dose, depending on the symptoms, is essential for the joint disorders. So, as I said, that add-on therapy sometimes with allopathy might be needed, and try to establish diagnosis from both Ayurveda and modern science. So, this is what I wanted to present today, and now it is open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time to prepare for us such an extraordinary, wonderful presentation, which was incredibly informative. We shall now go ahead to the question and answer session. Delegates can post your queries in the chat box. We have some questions in the chat box, sir.
Yes, please, you can.
How the
Yeah.
Okay, sir. How the quality and quantity of food in Langana should be determined in what form?
Yeah, of course, qualitative and quantitative both are important. Like Guru Ahara, Lagu Ahara. That is what Ayurveda said. Like Masha, especially. Masha is said to be Guru. Like most of the South Indians, they have an habit of consuming the idli and dosa, which is prepared with the Masha. So it is essential to either to stop or to reduce, because Guru Ahara should be taken only, to the level of half satiety level or the santrupti. But Lagu Ahara can be taken. Like Mudga is example for Lagu Ahara. Similarly, Dadi, like curd, people have a habit of regularly consuming the curd. And also the modern food items also have to be really analyzed, like what kind of diet the persons are consuming. Like nowadays, we have a lot of chana dal and pizza, so many other diets are there. So I think you need to really concentrate on those things also. Definitely it is possible to have a check on the qualitative diet and quantitative, of course, at least to reducing the diet to half of the quantity. If the patient, if you feel that ama is there, just initially tell them to reduce the diet to the half, need not go for complete langana. So langanam is lagvashanam apadarpanam va. So it is langana means not complete fasting. It could be lagu ashana. So lagu ashana has to be determined by each person as per his requirements. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Sir, to what Phenameha is correlated?
Yeah, Phenameha, as I said, like the foamy urine, especially why the foam comes in the urine, the froth, if it is coming in the urine, that indicates the loss of proteins. Now, if you put the egg in the water, you can see that there are a lot of foam in there, because egg has protein content. So when the body loses protein, definitely you can see a lot of the foam which is coming out. And the same thing happens in Phenameha. So this idea is present in our Sushruta Samhita, where Phenameha is mentioned, and also Sushruta mentioned kashayas for every type of prameha, which are highly practical actually. So for Phenameha, he said to use Aragvada, Draksha, and Triphala Kashaya. Over a period of time, it has to be used, not just for few days. Sometimes the patient may need to use for months, and probably we need research actually for analyzing such thing. But clinically, we can see definitely there is a good improvement in the clinical aspect. Okay, so Phenameha can be correlated with the proteinuria.
Thank you, sir. Please explain Vaidharan Basti in Amavada once again with duration of treatment.
Yeah, like Vaitarana Vasti is the Vasti that is useful in I would like to go to this slide if it is needed for the student. But Vaidana Vasti has got important ingredients like Gomutra and Saindavadi Thailam, Chincha Kalka. So, how to really prepare Vaidana Vasti is initially you can take some So 24 grams of guda. This is what how we prepare 24 grams of guda, which is half pala, which is mixed with some gomutra. Then 1 karsha of saindava. That means maybe 10 grams also you can take, or 12 grams of saindava lavana, and 6 grams of yavakshara can be added, because you wanted to give some kshara property, because ksharavasti is also the term which is mentioned here. Yavakshara can be added. Then Saindavadi Thailam, Ishat Thailam, it has been mentioned. So Thaila should not be added much. So you can select either 40 ml, maximum is 100 ml, depending on the need of the patient. Sometimes patient might have some irritation, like because Ksharavasti, it is a strong, potent Vasti. So maybe first day you can give some high dose, some 80 ml of oil, and then the subsequent doses you can reduce the content of the quantity of the oil. Saindavadi Thailam is a preferred oil. And then Chincha Kalka, so 1 pala, that is 48 grams, can be added. The tamarind, it is nothing but tamarind mixed with water, and paste can be added. Then 190 ml of gomutra we add. So roughly it becomes around 300 ml, 300 to 320 ml. So which is administered to the patient. Okay, so this is Vaitarnavasti. And as I said, the contents when they were examined for individual pH, it was coming around 7. Just like I said about Shadharana Yoga, which is a highly balanced drug combination. In the same manner, Vaitarnavasti is a very balanced, the Vasti Dravya.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Dr. Swati. Dr. Swati, you can ask your question.
Hello?
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Thanks for the very informative and wonderful session. I have two questions to put forward. Sir, I'm treating an SLE case. Could you just guide me whether I should stop the allopathic line of treatment and continue the Ayurvedic line of treatment, or shall I reduce the dosage of allopathic line of treatment for the patient? And second question is that a girl of 22 years age is coming for the treatment of sounds coming from the joints. There's no pain, nothing as such. Only when she sits, there is a crackling sound. And what can be done for that? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, first is SLE, I think. I
Yeah.
probably, yes, okay. So the SLE, as I said, it depends on what drugs they are using, like disease modifying anti-rheumatic drugs like DMA, RDs, I said, so like methotrexate, whether they are using, if they are using, how frequently, like weekly once, how much dose they are using. If they're using in a high dose, definitely you can reduce. You have the luxury of reducing 2.5 milligrams in a span of 15 days. After 15 days, you can reduce 2.5 mg, and you can keep it to 7.5 mg initially, and simultaneously you can give Ayurveda drugs. Then gradually you may reduce and just stabilize it on 2.5 mg finally. Steroids, if they are using steroids in a high dose, I think steroids have got their own way, a method of reduction. We cannot be very fast in reducing the steroids. So definitely you need to go very slowly and systematically in reducing high dose of steroids. But if they are on a low dose of steroid, it can be stopped over a period of 1 week. If they are using only 2 mg of steroid or 4 mg of steroid, gradually in a span of 1 week or 15 days, you can reduce. So, but it is always advisable in patients of SLE to go for a complete urine examination, serum creatine values before doing all these things. And but if the patient can stabilize in for 6 months on Ayurveda drugs, definitely the chance of recurrences are less. Okay, so you can safely reduce. And
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to clarify one more doubt. In SLE, usually the allopathic doctors prescribe the immunosuppressant to the patient, considering it as an autoimmune
yes, of
disease. So
course.
they usually prescribe the immunosuppressant. On the contrary, we as an Ayurvedic physician, we try to always give the immunity boosters to the medication in the medications like Guruji Adhikashayam and all those things. So, sir, how to understand this? The different principles of line line of treatment, sir. On one hand, we are giving the immunity booster medications, and on the other hand, allopathics are giving immunodepressants. Thank you, sir.
Immunosuppressants, yes. Actually, I don't think that we have such a outstanding immuno boosters. They you cannot call them an outstanding immuno boosters, just like the outstanding immunosuppressants of modern science. They are immuno balancing agents. I would say that they balance the things, but they cannot really increase the immunity to such a high level. Okay, so I don't see any contrary, and our drugs doesn't act only based on the principle of immunity. In fact, the Guduchi, Estimadu, whatever you are giving, they act in a different way, not just based on immunity. Because I said that their action is more in line with the Tridoshik line of management, and also based on the Virya they act. So I don't see any contrary in this statement. Even Grutai, I don't think that it is a immuno booster. Gruta also makes your immunity to a normal level. Gruta is said to be one of the immuno booster. Grutapana also, I see that it is a immunocorrective rather than immuno booster.
Okay, sir.
Right. And the second thing you said that like a patient producing the sounds in the joints, it is nothing but vata constitution, like vata prakriti. It is mentioned that satatam sandhi shabda. So there is a feature of vata prakriti. As such, it may not translate into disease, but definitely a preventive side. You should advise the patient to go for oil application, and advise some snehana inside. Some shamana sneha. You can advise Gogrutapana for a few days, or maybe you can advise Gandharva Taila weekly once or twice. So Snehana is essential. Bahya Abhyantara Sneha.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Right. Sure.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to next question. Frozen shoulder management, please.
Yeah, of course, frozen shoulder really that doesn't come under the present lecture discussions. Like it is entirely different. Like frozen shoulder could happen because of many reasons. It could happen because of commonly because of the diabetes. So diabetic frozen shoulder is a very common presentation. I have a great faith for Upanaha for all these ailments, especially wherever the stiffness is present. It is nothing but a stiffness. So when the stiffness is present, you need to go for Svedana. So Svedana should be given for a longer duration of time, and different Svedanas should be adopted. You can give Nadi Sveda. You can see, whether the patient is really comfortable with that, or you can see, Valukas where sometimes you need to go for trial and error basis. You cannot be sure. Maybe it could be ama. If it is because of ama, then Ruksha Sveda might help. But in Manya Stamba, Sushruta said Ruksha Sveda. Manya Stamba, where the stiffness of the neck will be present, sometimes the stiffness also carried to the shoulder. So Ruksha Sveda could be a better option to try initially. But if it fails to produce result, you should go for Nadi Sveda followed by Upanaha. But as I said, that Svedana should be given properly. The patient should not go for Atisveda, and the Ayoga also should not happen. Generally, Atisveda will not happen if you are not giving the Sarvanga Sveda. If you are making the patient to sit in a box, then there is a possibility of Atisveda Lakshanas. But if you are giving Ekanga Sveda, localized fermentation, then Atisveda Lakshanas are not possible. So you can simply go for Svedana for a shorter duration for multiple times in a day. That is a better option. Okay,
Thank
and
you,
of course,
sir.
apart from that, Nasya is definitely useful. Nasya should be tried in a higher dose. I would say that not in 6 drops. Anutaila can be started from low dose. It can be increased to at least some 32 drops. Even we have given at least 60 drops also to one patient at a time. So sometimes, dose is not adequate, I feel, but it has to be done gradually. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Difference between neurological pain and Vada pain and its treatment.
Neurological and
And Vada pain.
Vata.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like Vata constitutes both types of pains. Vataja Shula could be the Sandhi Shula. It could be the due to the neurological ailment also. So it is a broad term. Vataja Shula could be a broad term. But as I said, then you have to identify, differentiate between the neuralgia and myalgia and arthralgia. So this is not much difficult. If you see, if joint pain is present, that is definitely arthralgia. If muscle pain is present, it could be myalgia or neuralgia. But the myalgia conditions are very much specified in modern science, like polymyositis, dermatomyositis, fibromyalgia, which are not difficult to identify. Neurological pains, of course, there will be set of symptoms like tingling sensation, um, burning sensation, muscle weakness. So different types of neurological symptoms will be present, which are not seen in the myalgias. So Vataja Shula is a broad term. I would say that Vataja Shula will cover all these three types of pains. So you need to be more if you want to be more specific, I think you need to understand the difference between the myalgia, arthralgia, and neuralgia.
Thank you, sir. Sir, if RA negative and cartilage damage is there, then what is the treatment?
No, actually, cartilage damage can happen. Mostly, it is seen in osteoarthritis, but even in rheumatoid arthritis, also it is possible. Rheumatoid arthritis, over a period of time, it progresses from acute to chronic. And as I said, Sandhi Bandhana will become Sandhi Shidilata, joint will become loose, and the secondary osteoarthritis will start from that point of onwards. So most of the chronic rheumatoid arthritis patients have a secondary osteoarthritis. So your what you said, that condition perfectly fits there. It could be, they could be RA negative, but the cartilage damage can happen. So the treatment at that time depends on Amalakshana or Niramalakshana. If the Amalakshana is there, you should go for the Amavata treatment, line of treatment. And if Niramalakshana is there, simply you should proceed for Sandhivata line of management or Samanyavata Vyadhi management.
Thank you, sir. Emergency pain relief management in severe arthralgia.
In Ayurveda,
Yes, sir.
of course, in modern medicine, we have plenty of painkillers. Analgesics are there. But of course, when it comes to Ayurveda, I would say that pain means Sveda. So Sveda karma should be properly utilized. If you want to treat acute pain, you should know how to utilize the Sveda karma. So that it needs little bit mastery, and it needs more application and use of more and more drugs. You should be aware of the utility of those drugs. And when comes to the Vasti, of course, Matra Vasti also could be one of the magical remedy for pains, like the backache, low backache, or maybe sciatic type of pains. You can see instant relief within 3-4 days. There will be a huge amount of reduction in the pain when you start giving Matra Vasti and Kashaya Vasti for Grudrasi patients, which is not relieved with other Kati Vasti and all those things. So Vasti is also one more segment. But when you comes to the Shamana drugs, we have some good drugs like Lashana. I would say Lashana Adivati is one of the drugs that should be preferred, but it should be very judiciously used in Pitta Prakriti, because it can increase the heat in the patient. So it is possible that it may increase the flare up the Ushnata in the patient. So if the patient is not Pitta Prakriti, Lashana Devati is the best drug. Apart from that, Sanjeevani Vati is one of the good option, because it has got Ballataka, which is very good and effective in reducing the pains, acute pains. Okay, so these are the two drugs which I would like to go. And more than that, even you should concentrate on Vatanulomana like Ingvastak Churna. Sometimes Ingvastak Churna is very good in relieving the pain related to the digestive system, and also very good in relieving the pains related to dysmenorrhea. So it also can be tried in other types of pains, irrespective of its affinity to the GAD tract.
Thank you, sir. As we are running out of time, we are winding up the question and answer session. Thank you very much, sir, for answering all the questions. Once again, thank you, sir. So, shall we conclude now, sir?
Yeah, thanks a lot for all the organizers. Once again, to the principal, I think Dr. Sudhir sir. So thanks a lot for inviting me for this lecture, and all the organizers of this present seminar, and also to all participants who patiently listened to my lecture, and also to my colleague Dr. Padma Priya, who really coordinated between myself and the organization. And I would like to thank one and all. Many thanks. So I think we can end the session. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Surabhi here, Assistant Professor, Department of Rachna Sharira, Ayurveda College, Coimbatore, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, one and all. It's a privilege and a great joy for me to extend a vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Praveen Kumar sir for sharing your valuable experience and views on vast clinical area of Amavata. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge and experience and for taking time to provide us with your clinical knowledge regarding management of rheumatological diseases in Ayurveda. I extend my sincere gratitude to whole Diksha team for providing us with the best platform. Let me thank the delegates who have responded so well to our invitation to participate in the webinar. We look forward to welcoming you again in our next session. Thank you, one and all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
We have now come to the end of the session. The sun sets in the evening today with the promise that it will rise again tomorrow. Here's hoping that the day comes will be a better tomorrow. See you all in the next session on clinical understanding of blood pressure in Ayurveda by Vaidya Umesh Segal, Ayush Medical Officer, Ayush Department, on 3rd of February 2021. To know more about our updates, please do stay connected with our social platforms. That's all for today's most interesting session with lots of new information for us to close our eyes with thought provoking knowledge. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you. Good night.